Hello everyone, welcome back. It's mid-March of 2023, and I thought it might be fun to do a little orchard walk today and kind of bring you along, show you the trees, what's going on, talk a little bit about what we have growing here on our half acre, as also a way to show you how much you can fit onto a half an acre. So this is our northern spy apple tree. I planted this one in, I think it was 2018, the sign said. Northern Spy was sort of the apple that started my obsession with unusual and cool apples, although Northern Spy may not be the most unusually grown apple or anything. It's just the one that for some reason captured my attention way back when, and then in searching for that, we found the orchard that had all these other cool apples, and then of course get on YouTube and see like Stephen Hayes' channel and a number of other apple growers, and so that sort of inspired us to grow some of these unusual ones you're going to see as we walk through. So this one, the fence was just built last year, so I put the fence as far forward as I could in the yard for a number of reasons. We couldn't go any further forward, and so this tree I wanted to at least protect it. We're trying to keep the deer out mostly, and it's worked really well actually. It also provides privacy and security, which is nice, but the deer are the primary thing we're trying to keep out. You can see lots of fruit buds on this Geneva 11 golden russet. So Geneva 11 is the rootstock, and there are a number of different kinds of dwarfing rootstocks, but I like Geneva 11 the most. I didn't really know when I bought these which was which or anything like that. We didn't have any, there's some geese up in the sky there. We didn't have any experience or anything with these, so I was just looking at numbers and saying, okay, 25% size, that sounds pretty good. And these Geneva 11, this one is 2017. It was this one and the one next to it, and some of the other ones you're going to see were planted in the same day in April of 2017. They're our oldest ones, and it's only like 7 feet tall still, and I've really never pruned it. It just sort of naturally grows into this snowball shape, which is really nice. That's a kid's orange red. This is a golden russet. Golden russet's like a year younger, but it's a little taller, a little bigger, but some of that has to do with the type of apple too. This is a blue pearmain on bud 9. So bud 9 is another dwarfing. It's considered one of the most dwarfing rootstocks. Planted in the exact same day as the golden rust or the kid's orange red next to it. And this one is just loaded with fruit buds. You can see if you're looking at your trees looking to see if you have fruit buds, it's usually when you see one that does have fruit buds, you'll know if it doesn't, if that makes sense, because you can see how spiky that looks. And all the ones that have fruit buds are super spiky. The ones that don't are very smooth. Like this one's a lot smoother, this golden russet, but this is also our multi-grafted tree. So this one has all kinds of varieties. It was planted on the same day as those other ones, but I've since grafted in all of these different varieties that you can see here. And some of them might get fruit for the first time this year, the 2021 grafts, because it's been a couple years. But all of those took, and I'm really happy about it. And we'll show how we graft in some videos this spring. But for example, this is a phenyllite gree called anise russet also. There's the graft union right there. And what's really cool about this is that's all phenyllite gree there. It grew like crazy. But it looks like it has some possible fruit buds there, some spikes. Again, they sort of, just for lack of a better term, look like spikes on the branch. Granny Smith I did last year, so there's the graft union. I did a cleft graft. It took off pretty good. So this tree is kind of like wild looking because, when you have a multi-grafted tree, it's going to look wild. That's summer orange. That thing grew like 3 feet last summer. I have no idea if that, hope that apple's good. It certainly likes growing here. Arkansas black. You can see the cleft took off pretty well. But this tree is unruly looking, but that's comes with the territory of having 20-some varieties on one tree. It's going to look kind of wild, but that's okay. Has its own character. Winter banana, that one looks like it has some fruit buds. That's exciting. Then I've got Esopus Spitzenberg on here. Also looks like it has some fruit buds. That's a really good apple. One of Thomas Jefferson's favorites. But just a really tasty, spicy apple. That's our peach tree that not everyone, but many people get all worked up about not pruning it, that I don't prune it heavily or cut it way back. And I'll just say we had hundreds of pounds of peaches. So this thing produces a ton of fruit and it doesn't get pruned. So you don't have to prune your fruit trees. I do prune a lot of them. This one we left big because it blocks light from the street and it gives us privacy on our deck, and it produces hundreds of pounds of peaches. So hey, there's really no downside. It's just a really cool tree too. I like the way it looks. So if you don't prune your fruit trees, you're just going to get fruit anyway. They'll just get bigger. That's, don't not grow fruit trees because you think it might be difficult or you have to do X, Y, or Z. These are some fruit buds on the Calville Blanc. This is one of my favorite shape trees that I've done in terms of pruning. So I do prune this one quite heavily to try to get it into sort of like a snowball shape. And from a distance, if I back up, you can see it's a beautiful shaped tree. And I just don't want to climb a ladder to pick the fruit. So the peach I'm not so worried about, but the apples I want to be able to pick them from the ground for the most part. This is Pitmaston pineapple. This is, and I'm really excited about this one because this looks like for the first time we're going to get some fruit. You see all those spikes on it from a distance. You can even see how spiky it looks. This is its 5th year coming up, so it's about time for an MM111. This is the one that I made the video with the little concrete weights, and so I've taken them off, but when it gets fruit, it'll bend those branches down the rest of the way, so that's perfectly fine. And there is that pine tree there, but still the sun gets in here, and this guy's doing pretty well. Got to kind of just coexist with the big trees that are around because I mentioned in another video with the fruit tree spacing or the fruit tree locations, I just really like the big old trees, and so they just add character. So you just work around them, and you don't have any problem. We have a lot of shade in our yard, but we also have enough sun that we get a lot of fruit, as you've seen in our videos. This is a Bartlett pear, was planted on the same day as the Kids Orange and the Blue Pear Maine. Beautiful tree. This one I do prune pretty heavily because look how tall it is. And I chop it every year, chop the top back because otherwise it would be probably 25 feet tall already and just really skinny. So, pruning is a good thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't when I was talking about the peach tree, but you also don't necessarily have to. The peach tree just makes a nice form on its own. These other ones won't necessarily make a form that's useful for us. This is the Asian pear, Peggy Asian pear, also planted on the same day as those other trees. 2017 was our first spring in the house, and so that one day I think I planted like 7 or 8 trees all at one time because we didn't have any. But that Asian pear has provided baskets of fruit over the last few years. Just delicious, delicious pear. And then we have our little pawpaw patch that we're starting. This is an Allegheny that I ordered from, I think, One Green World. It got snapped by that tree that fell, but I think what's growing is the graft. If it isn't, it's the rootstock, and I'll graft it over to something. Here's our NC1. It's about 7 feet tall now, and it's got a whole bunch of fruit buds. Last year it flowered a little bit, like it had 3 or 4 flowers. This year there's a ton of them. And NC1 is a fantastic pawpaw. It's the southern Ontario, I guess, is where it's native to, and so that's a good thing for us because we're in western New York, like 40 minutes south of Buffalo. So, if it grows there, it should grow here really well in terms of, it'll grow, but get ripe in time is really the big thing. Here's a pawpaw seedling, T2. It's a seedling. It's not grafted. We got it from the Pawpaw Festival in York the first time we went, so 2018. And then we also got this one the same day. This, you can see the difference in how they grew. This one is growing like a weed. This is a mango seedling. Again, seedling, but mango is known to grow really fast. It's a mango pawpaw, not a mango fruit. They call it that because the pawpaw is an orange color inside, like a mango, but it is a pawpaw. This is a black Tartarian cherry. This tree is kind of gummy and gnarly looking, as you can see, but has tons of fruit blossoms, cherry blossoms. every year it blossoms and the frost kills the blossoms. So I'm hoping this year, because it's been so cold, maybe they won't flower quite as soon. Yeah, you see what I mean? They just get... Cherry trees can kind of look like that, though, sometimes. You know, I've seen a lot of them that look like that, and they, even in the wild, and they just do fine, so don't worry too much. I mean, I guess that's kind of my MO with gardening anyways. I'm not going to worry too much about it. It'll grow or it won't, and if it doesn't, we have plenty of other trees that can take its place. This is a green gauge plum, ordered from Cummings Nursery a couple years ago. This one really got beat up by the rabbits. They really hammered, because I didn't used to have any guards on the... You can see all those black pipe pieces around the trees. I didn't used to do that because we just never had an issue. And then last year, the rabbits absolutely obliterated some of our trees. But luckily, they left enough that they didn't girdle the entire tree. But they did a number on that plum and a couple of my apples. The apples just healed right over, like nothing happened. The plum still looks a little questionable, the green gauge. But it grew like 3 feet after that last year. So we'll see what happens. This is the Rainier cherry. That's starting to become a real tree, too. It's a really nice shaped tree. Beautiful. And I've never pruned it either. It's just grown that way. There's its buds. You can already see them starting to get green. Look at that. That's the problem with this, is it's a beautiful tree, but it flowers early, and then the spring frost comes and you don't get any cherries. But we'll see how it goes. There's our branch stuck in the ground that I talked about in another video. That's our marker for where a tree's going to go. This little line of apples, all planted in the same year, 2020. This is Ashmead's kernel. And remember I talked about the spikes. You can see a couple, I think that might be a fruit bud there, looks like. It's not as spiky. See how it looks different from some of the other apple trees? There's a few spikes, but it's not just like spiky all over the place. So that's just starting to possibly get some fruit buds. This little guy, this pink pearl, beautiful little tree, just seems to grow like that. With its branches horizontal. Super handy dandy. I've never trained it or pruned it or anything. It just wants to grow in a handy form like that. But this one, the rabbits really did a number on its trunk. They probably chewed like 30, 40, almost actually maybe even more than half of it now that I'm thinking about it. But the tree healed right over like nothing. When it grew, it didn't heal, it grew over that part and encapsulated it and just kept growing. So when your trees are young, they're pretty resilient, but I'm now protecting them. I didn't used to, like I mentioned. This is another little multi-grafted one I've got going. This isn't my favorite tree. I've got some grafts on it. I've got a winter banana. I have a Court Pen du Plat from our own tree. A piece I just wanted to try out and put it on there and see what happened. Mostly I was playing around with grafting to practice. And I've got a little piece of chestnut crab and Darcy spice on there. It's not a bad tree, but it's not my favorite. It's not in the best spot under this basswood tree, but that's okay. It's an experiment. We'll see what happens. It grows well, that's for sure. I mean, it's certainly grown quickly. And the grafts have taken. This Darcy Spice graft, as you'll see, went way, way, way up. Darcy Spice grows really well here, apparently. And that's a really cool apple. It's got like a nutmeg cinnamon flavor, I think. It's amazing how many flavor compounds are in apples. So that you get all kinds of cool flavors. Citrus, nut, spice, sour, bitter, tannic, acidic, sweet, all sorts of things, banana flavors, and then you get like combinations of them. So that's why you grow all these different varieties, because you find one that really wants to grow in your area. So now we'll go to the north orchard, as I call it, north end of the property here. This is a Honeycrisp tree right under our basswood, but this tree produces some just awesome apples. I got this at a local nursery. It's a little tree. It's not really big, but last year it didn't produce apples because the rabbits chewed all the buds off when the snow was deep. But the year before, we got about 12 or 14 just like picture perfect apples off that tree without a single blemish. They were gorgeous and delicious apples, so that's exciting. And this is our sunflower pawpaw. When I planted it, it was literally like that twig I just showed. It was a little tiny twig in a 4-inch pot. Came in the mail from Stark's. Planted it in 2017, and the same day we planted all those other things. It had a rough start to life before this fence was here. It got run over by a snow plow. They plowed snow on top of it and crushed it. It just kept getting beat up, the poor thing. But now it's doing really, really well. This is knobdrusset, which is a really cool apple. I made a video on it in the Apple Profile series. And knobdrusset is one of those that's just ugly but delicious, like a lot of heirlooms. And it looks like it might have a few fruit buds. It's taken its time. Sometimes MM111, they take a while to really start fruiting, but it's a nice shaped tree. I've been working on pruning that one. And then this one is Anjou pear. It's also going to become our multi-grafted pear. And so you can start to see some buds on that one. It's not super old, spring 2020. It's pretty good size when we planted it. Got it from a tree farm, actually. You see some fruit buds. This will definitely get some fruit. It never has yet, but this year looks like it will. Last year it bloomed a little, like 1 or 2 flowers, which is usually what they do before they actually go the next year and really give you some fruit. But that I'm going to graft into. There's plenty of places to graft a couple other pear varieties in that Scion video onto it. And then we have what I call the Star Garden, which is a new area. This is our shade garden, because that's perpetually in the shade, because the sun comes from behind the garage. But this Court Penjou plat right here used to be in our front yard. I just moved it the other day. I moved it in like a couple weeks ago in the end of February, before it snowed again. I was able to dig. And so the best time to move a tree is never, and that's where another tree is going to go. The second best time is now, when it's dormant and it doesn't know the difference before it wakes up. Here's our final tree in the front yard, a place I don't film a lot because it's outside the fence and I do most of the gardening inside. Beautiful little tree. This Montmorency cherry next to a birch and a weeping cherry. So this one looks like it has a lot of really nice fruit buds on it, so that's exciting. So thank you for watching. This is somebody who's got the right idea for today. Gatsby taking a little nap, watching the snow outside the window. We appreciate you joining us for our trip to the orchard, and we hope to see you again soon.